Welcome everyone. Thank you for you to be here in presential. Thank you to be here online. So today we have the honor to receive our colleagues from Brazil, Billy Graeff. Billy is from the University of Rio Grande. My pronunciation is not very good, but yeah, good. So he's going to present like a deep work that he made for several years. It's almost done, maybe in 2-3 years more. About the voice of self. So Billy is involved in the thematic of sport for development and peace. He's involved in many other thematic, but he do the honor to visit us today and to give you this presentation about the voice of South America. He's originally from Brazil, and he's going to present this big project he's going to do about sport for development and peace. Thank you, Billy, to be here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Tegwen, for the invite. I'm Billy. I'm just need to check if, yes, I guess I'm all set. So I'm from the Federal University of Rio Grande, which means big river. And I did my PhD studies in Loughborough University in the UK. And I have been recently appointed as the General Secretary of the International Sociology of Sport Association. And I'm also a research fellow in Stellenbosch University in South Africa. And very importantly, I'm also the co-coordinator, academic coordinator, scientific coordinator of the soon-to-be launched Sport for Development and Peace in a global and transdisciplinary perspective chair of UNESCO, which is headed by our colleague, Tegwen. Thank you, Tegwen, for all the work you put in that application. It was a lot. So my first slide shows the distance between where I live, and it doesn't show there, where I live and where we are now. But that it's not just a curiosity. It's just to tell you that, let me see. I do this. Okay. What else? How can I do this? Here, maybe yes. Yes. So better. So I'm not from the Brazil that you are probably used to see on television, samba and beaches. I'm from the very south, where it's cold, and I live in a state called Rio Grande do Sul, which means big river of the south. So it was this big river was the Rio de la Plata. So the silver river, the one colonizers took to steal the gold and silver from the indigenous peoples. And what we do in Argentina, Uruguay, and my state, we are gauchos, which is a word connected to French, gauche. So we are strange. We drink. It was really cool that day. The other thing that we do is to eat the churrasco, the barbecue, the real barbecue. The United States, as they say, they have barbecue, but they don't. We have it in the South. That is just I try to do it nicely, way to say that I'm from a very specific region in the south of Brazil, and in Brazil we are considered to have a very strong accent. And then I went to England and I lived in the East Midlands, and they are considered to have a very strong accent as well. So if I say anything that you cannot understand, please don't be shy, just raise your hand or say something here on Zoom, and I'll try and translate it from my English to something you can understand. Okay, thank you. Oh, this is the English part of so there I am in Oxford, sorry. And also my kids' first day at the nursery, and then I'll always use this image of the Rugby World Cup in 2015 in England, because then the Australian beat them and they didn't go through the first round. Sorry, British people, English people. Okay, Now moving into the presentation. So this is a presentation that refers to a research path, not only one research that I decided to take after getting mad with people from FIFA and the IOC. I spent a lot of years studying sport mega events, and then I thought, oh well, that's enough. They just don't care. They want money. So I'm going to try and get closer to people that actually believe in what they are doing. So end of last decade, I started organizing my life to go into sport for development and peace. So I started reading stuff and preparing this research project. So the background on the area is that we have had for some time people defending that sport can be used as a tool to tackle social and cultural issues like conflict resolution, empowerment, especially of women, building community infrastructure, raising awareness of health, poverty, safety issues, and so on. I read that all, then I found out, and towards the end of 2000 and 2001, the UN and UNESCO, they realized that sport was very important in some communities and also a very good seller of some ideas. So they organized a office just to deal with this stuff, and they label this sport for development and peace. We were just discussing earlier with Tegwin that we have to be very critical about this because it's something that was invented, we just bought it. Just like empowerment as well. You know, the word empowerment showed up in a meeting in the UN, and now we all believe that's good, but we don't know much about that. And we don't know much about sport for development and peace as well. It is a very new area, 20, 30 years old. It doesn't have its own epistemology, its own philosophy. So it's very important that people that are connected to these communities can start studying them. And I'm very well rooted in my community. So I started from there, as I'm going to show you later. One of the things that I noticed is that Sport for Development and Peace started to get noticed by mainstream development studies. We don't cite them very much, but at some point they started to even call non-government organizations initiatives, but especially sport, as the fourth pillar of international development. Imagine that we just play ball and then they think we are doing important stuff. But at some point, we also started believing that we were doing important stuff. And then a lot of research happened since then. And one of the things that was quite important in that research is that it was very specific, and you could very easily identify an uneven distribution of power between the global south and the global north. Most of research has been done by people in the global north with money of people from the global north with their rules. So that's called top-down approach. They tell you what to do and then you do that on the ground. And we noticed that voices from different regions that are actually the object of the research on the area, they aren't heard. And that is very problematic. One of the things that I noticed is that in the handbook of Sport for Development and Peace, released by Routledge in 2019, you can find 84 authors, and only 5 of them are from or are living in the Global South. So you see, the handbook of Sport for Development and Peace is something made by and for people in the Global North. Hello. So I started trying to hear the voices of people related to projects in the Global South. That's another thing. You see, in Brazil, for example, in the whole of South America, we don't say in general sport for development and peace. We say the field of social sport projects. Well, the field where you have these people trying to do some good with sports. We are not framed that way. So The project is based on a series of case studies in South American countries. That's, you see, even saying that, I have to explain that it was a fight within the team, because we started saying Latin America. But then if you say Latin America, you cannot work with indigenous peoples because they are not Latin. And then you have people that are not Latin at all. They came from other places. So it's always difficult when you start taking these issues seriously. We had to frame the research according to the, again, top-down approach. Kinda. I hope they don't hear this. We had to frame the research project to submit it to the IOC Olympic Study Center. So we had to put some sustainable development agenda. So the Agenda 2030 and the SDGs in. And the way we did that, we decided to analyze, to ask people how they see their projects in the context of reaching the Sustainable Development Goals. And we chose a few of them that are more easily related to sports. After our research, even the UN, UNESCO, released a document which title is How Sport Can Help Reaching SDGs. And luckily for us, they were the same SDGs. So we asked them questions about healthy life and well-being, inclusive education and lifelong learning, gender, sustainability, economic growth, and so on. I'm not going to bother you with that. So since I studied in the UK, I have been around events and stuff, making friends. Like, I hope we become friends, and like I am friends with Tag now. And I have a very good friend from Palacky University, Olomouc, in the Czech Republic. They invited me there a few times to talk to them. And in one of the meetings, we decided to apply together for this research. So it's Simona Safarikova. She's probably going to show up here at some point. She's the other scientific co-coordinator of the UNESCO chair. And we have a colleague there called Arnoš Svoboda, who helped a lot with the methodology stuff. Take a note on that. Every time you need something on methodology, you can go to Arnoš. Simona is from the Czech Republic, but she speaks Spanish as a Colombian. She has lived there many years. And so we decided to go with 3 different places in Brazil. And like in Canada, you have to realize that it's a really huge country. So the north is totally different from the south. Then you have the northeast and other regions. So we studied in Rio Grande, my place in the south, in a city called João Pessoa in the northeast, a very touristic place. And then in the north, in Belém do Pará, so in the middle of the Amazon. And also because we have Simona with connections with Colombia, and Uruguay, which is 200 kilometers from my house, and I have friends there as well. So I invited them to join. Actually, I'm closer to Uruguay than I am to the capital city of my province, of my state. So it was easier for me to do that. But also, we wanted to be representative in this first try here. We contacted these people, and with one of the principles of the research was horizontality. So nobody would decide on anything without talking to others. And even I was the head of the research, sometimes would lose votes, and we would do whatever we had decided together. So these are some of the groups that we involved with research. And to choose the projects, we would ask local people to have a list of 10 different projects, and they should be different in terms of their size, so smaller and large projects with or without funding. And in Brazil, we have a lot of people, you're not going to see in this movie, but in the bigger version you can find online, you have people saying that, okay, one day I arrived home and the boys were all in the streets, and I thought, what could I do so they wouldn't be like this? I'm going to organize a football project. So he would buy a ball and some kits and would take the kids to the football pitch. So, and then you have others that have Adidas or Nike support. So they are very different this way. Also diverse populations and modalities. So we would have groups that would focus on capoeira, others on elderly people, and so on. And also some would be very localized in their community, and others would be projects that would happen everywhere. There is one in Colombia that they have more than 100 sites, some of them in the United States. And also that we had an issue, and this was one of the projects of my life. I had put money to travel all around South America. I would go to Colombia, Uruguay, and then the pandemic. And we have to adapt the research to that as well. So all the interviews were in online. I couldn't do observations and stuff. Okay, so then as I said, we organized these 10 research projects, and then we analyzed them and decided on 3 in every one of the places. And we tried to keep the same parameters from before. So if we get a very small project in Rio Grande, maybe we would have to have a big one in Belém, something like that. So we would have a better representation as well. So it was a qualitative approach. We did document analysis, and we thought it would be a secondary methodology there, but it was very important because then we learned stuff from the local places, even the struggles they have and what they are thinking of stuff. But the online focus groups and the interviews were actually the main part of the research, because then people, they were, I guess that's not registered in any of the papers, but even we could feel that, can I start? Yes. And we would think that it would take 15 minutes and they would speak for hours because they have never been heard about this. And some of them had been doing that for ages. Then I know that you probably like my voice, but I guess it's going to be better if we can also have other people speaking here. And we prepared a movie. So this is the shorter version, and you have the complete version on the internet, and it's the same title, and I can send you the link.
War minus the shooting, opium of the people, secular religion, sport is health, sport is life, sport is good. Today, sport can be associated with practically all dimensions of social life, politics, economy, religion. However, above all, sport is seen as fundamental for the development of physical fitness, for mental well-being, and for socialization. Even more, for Nelson Mandela, sport has the power to change the world. It has the power to inspire. It has the power to unite people in a way that little else does. It speaks to youth in a language they understand. Sport can create hope where once there was only despair. It is more powerful than governments in breaking down racial barriers. It laughs in the face of all types of discrimination. Sport activities linked to these social aims take place in the context of a sector that became known as sport for development and peace, and tend to happen in the region of the world that has been conventionally called the Global South, particularly in Africa and South America. In this film, we hear South American voices on sport for development and peace. This documentary is based on a research project called South American Sport for Development Voices and the Sustainable Development Goals, which was funded by the Advanced Olympic Research Grant from the Olympic Studies Center of the Olympic Foundation for Culture and Heritage. The research was coordinated by Dr. Billy Graeff from the Federal University of Rio Grande in Brazil, and by Dr. Simona Safarekova and Dr. Arno Svoboda from Palacky University, Olomouc in the Czech Republic. Researchers estimate that less than 10% of research on sport for development and peace published internationally in English involves actors from the global south. According to them, Latin America participates in only 3% of these publications. So we decided to listen to the voices of sport for development and peace actors linked to this field in South America in our research. In this film, we present such voices, highlighting their perspectives, challenges, and inspiration. Our research was developed from 5 different sites. Rivera in Uruguay, under the coordination of Dr. Luciano Janeca from the University of the Republic of Uruguay. Rio Grande, Brazil, under the coordination of Dr. Gustavo da Silva Freitas of the Federal University of Rio Grande. João Pessoa, Brazil, under the coordination of Dr. Aurea Augusta Rodrigues da Mata from the Federal University of Paraíba. Belém, Brazil, under the coordination of Dr. Lucilia da Silva Matos from the Federal University of Pará. Bogotá, Colombia, under the coordination of psychologist and master student Catherine Cudiva, Universidade Nacional de Colombia.
Hello, I'm Billy with the Federal University of Rio Grande, and together with Dr. Arnoš Svoboda and Dr. Simona Šafarikova from Palak University Olomouc, we coordinated the research that was the basis for this movie. It is important to register that this movie was developed in the pandemic of COVID-19 during the years of 2020 and 2021. And that's why we could not display any footage from the actual activities that take place within the initiatives that are featured in this film. One of the main features of this movie is that we talk directly with people involved with sport for development and peace initiatives here in South America. But beyond that, we also found out a few characteristics that are quite specific to the setups we researched. For example, the institution school is recurrently regarded as very important within many of the projects. The subject of drugs is quite present within the narratives of the actors that we talk to. So in the future, research can try and understand why that is. And beyond that as well, we found out that although many of the projects work with themes that are related with sustainable development goals, many of the actors have never heard about Agenda 2030, for example, or even SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. There was a difference in this theme that is related to the fact that in Colombia, it was more common for us to find people within the framework of Sport for Development and Peace that would know more about Agenda 2030 and the SDGs, while in Brazil and Uruguay, that was quite rare. Okay, that was our movie. We hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please try and contact us, and stay tuned for future outcomes of this research, especially in terms of literature. Bye-bye.
Okay, this is the shorter half of the shorter version, and I guess we are towards the end of the presentation already, so don't worry. Okay, and as you saw, even for the discussion in 5 minutes, it's very important, I guess, to ask the students why they think that in Brazil and Colombia, the theme of school would show up, and also drugs, and these themes are not present in the international or in the literature in English. Why that is? Saving that, then, as I said, this is a research path, not only one research project. So just right after finishing that one, I went into a postdoctoral sabbatical, so research sabbatical in São Paulo. And one of the things that I noticed in this field that a lot of people, they want to connect their image to sport for development and peace, to sport for good. And many of them are athletes. So I decided to research that. And the title of the research project was Athlete Sport Club. So why people want to associate their names with that. The research question was why and how athletes and former athletes invest time, material, and symbolic resources in sports social projects. I used the Bourdieu, that right? Yeah. Yesterday I said something like Bourdieu and I was corrected. So I'm trying my best to learn how to pronunciate Bourdieu. So I used his framework, so working with lifestyle, habitus, illusio, and also taste, which is a very important sociological concept that's very little explored. Why do we decide stuff? And most of it, or part of it at least, is decided within that sphere. I interviewed 3 athletes, very high-level athletes, 3 people from the projects they are related to. And in the mix of doing the research, I found out there's a person, not a person, but a job, a profession that you can have, which is connecting these projects to the funding agencies or companies that can invest in your project and then use that to not to pay taxes. Then I interviewed that person as well. I'm preparing the papers now, but from the analysis, we found out that first, there is an unquestionable belief in the effectiveness of sport as a tool for social development. So they actually believe that very strongly. There is always present a narrative of reciprocity, of giving back what sport provided to athletes. So why do you do that? No, I was poor and then I could help my family, so I want to give sport to these people so they can help their families. There was a lot of religiosity involved. I don't know if you follow the Brazilian national team, but you can see after the goals, it's getting more and more common, or in the UFC, Brazilian fighters, more and more common to say that that was God and not them. And that's very easily related to a wave that have been hitting Brazil since the 80s of new Pentecostal churches. And there was a discussion with my supervisor, and he at some point asked me, Billy, but I don't see in the data or your papers the modus operandi. And then I thought, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I couldn't, because I would ask them and they would say, sport is good. And say, but why do you do that? Sport is good. But sport is good. So an unquestionable belief in sport. And also, but why do you do that? Because sport is so good for me. It was so good for me that I wanted to. And then I said, I couldn't find the modus operandi. I only found a modus narrandi. And then, where did you read that? I said, I just made it up now to discuss with you. So we are exploring that modus narrandi, which would be a barrier that you'd reach in sport for development and peace narratives that is based in walls that are constructed over this type of argument. And then, if you want to follow my the next steps, I didn't mention that. I just got approval in our meeting from the Brazilian National Council of Scientific and Technological Development approval for a new round of this research. And now I felt more confident. So we are going to repeat some of the places we have already done. So it's going to be, instead of 3, 4 places in Brazil, and instead of 2, 4 places in other countries. We are going to repeat Uruguay and Argentina, and we are going to also collect data in Mexico and Guatemala. And hopefully this time I'm going to get to visit these places. And we are also launching remember that I said that the Routledge Handbook had 84 authors and only 5 from the Global South. I was so mad about that I organized with friends another book, and it's called the Routledge Handbook of the Global South in Sport for Development and Peace. People from your university, they have chapters in this book, and it's going to be released in the next few days or weeks, we hope. And it is it has more than 50. It has 50 texts and more than 100 authors. 80%. But we didn't want to be. So Paulo Freire once said that when education is not liberating, the dream of the oppressor is to be the oppressor. I don't want to be the oppressor. So people from the Global North that teamed up with people from the Global South submitted the papers without problem to our book. So they can never accuse me of doing the same they did with us. This is my research gate. I don't know. It's like a Facebook for old people. Research gate. I have a profile there because then I can put stuff that I cannot put openly, like the papers I publish. Then I have to pay to read. So they send me one copy. I put it there, and even if it's not open, you send me a message saying, "Can you provide this?" And I would sell it to you. So thank you for your attention.
Obrigado.
De nada, Daniel.
Muito obrigado.